Kate with Both Hands Crafts. I'm here to show you how to get started with one of our punch needle kits. Punch needle is a fiber art that is easy to pick up. It is relatively quick to do, and it's also fairly forgiving in terms of correcting mistakes as you go. So it makes it a really low stakes craft for beginners to pick up. It creates a really interesting texture, and once you get going, it's basically like, coloring a coloring book or painting with yarn. So I find it very meditative and calming, and I hope you do too. So let's get started. We have here our threader and our punch needle tool, and then some yarn. So I'm going to show you how to get started with threading the needle. So you'll take a bit of your yarn, and then you'll grab your threader. What you want to do is sort of pinch the top of it, and then take your needle and make sure you can see here. So there's a hole in the back of the needle here, and you're going to stick it through the needle and through the center of the punch needle tool. It'll come out the other end like this. You'll grab your yarn, pull it through the loop like that, and then you're going to pull it back out through the center of your needle again. Okay. So now it's threaded. You can see the yarn is coming up through the bottom center of the tool, up through the middle of the tool, and then out the hole in the back of the needle's tip there. Okay, now we're ready to get going. That's probably one of the trickier parts of this, and then, that's how easy this whole thing is. This here is the color plane pattern, and you'll see another version of it here. And so this kit, the design, is sort of a Bauhaus minimalist design with clean lines, and it's really about the contrast in the colors. Each kit comes with enough yarn in each of the colors, so you can decide what color you want to put where. So depending on your space and what you think looks best, you can, there's many different variations you can make. So I'm going to start here. This is the last section of this pattern, and I'm just going to start here in the bottom corner. And you'll want to hold your canvas. Sometimes, honestly, I like to sit cross-legged and hold the canvas between my legs, so I'm punching into the space between my legs. But for here, I'm using an easel. But you'll want to hold it because it does take a little bit of force to get through the canvas. So you just punch all the way through. You'll flip it over, and you'll want to pull your tail out like that. Okay, so now we're ready to start stitching. You'll pull your needle out. You want to keep it pretty close to the canvas at all times. You don't want to be pulling it way out, or you're going to get big loops, as you can see like that. So you'll just pull the yarn through, make it taut, and then you'll see, there are sort of squares in the monk's cloth. So you want to go, I usually go like 1, 2, 3, or even 4. I like the look of this. It looks almost like weaving, so that's my preference, but you might find you like shorter stitches or longer stitches, or you might want a variation, that's up to you. But the idea is that you're keeping your needle close to the fabric. You have the opening of the needle facing the direction that you're going to be stitching. So in this case, I'm going up. And you just want to kind of glide the needle to the point where you want to insert the stitch, and then you just punch through. You pull it out, you do it again, you punch through. So these are like relatively large stitches, but once you have another row, they'll start to get packed in, and it will create that nice texture. So then you're just gonna just keep stitching, about that size. let's say I do one that's too short or I do one that's too long and I don't like how that looks, you simply pull it out, pull from the back of the needle, and then you can scrape this with your fingernail or your needle even, and then just do it again until you get it how you want. And that is kind of it. You're basically just punching through. When you get, and you want to turn, you again just make sure you turn the direction of the needle point. And here, when we're starting to stack the stitches, against other stitches that have already been done, I like to do a staggered stitch. So you'll see, let's see, for example, here, the stitches are sort of offset from one another. They're not all in rows and columns. I think this just looks more organic and handmade, and it looks more like a woven material, which I think looks nice. Again, depending on what you're going for, you might want to stack your stitches, but to stagger your stitches, I think it makes it easier to fill the space without any gaps. So what you will do is, if you can see here, this stitch right here, I'm going to go into the center of this stitch right below it. So I kind of like tuck my needle into the center of the stitch, push against it a little bit, not too much, you don't want it too tight, but push into the center of the above stitch right directly underneath that. And then that's going to create that offset pattern. And you might be able to see here that there's a little bit, didn't do a great job here. There's a little bit of a gap. When you have anything like that, you could choose to just, undo the stitches and go back and do that again. But what I also find is when you come back around on the next row and you have the next stitch that's going to go into the center of this stitch above, or just, beneath the center of the stitch above, it can push the yarn so that you get rid of that gap. So you don't need to worry too much about that. And when you're done, you can also go back with your needle and sort of, fluff up stitches or move them around a little bit. If you find that you've gone through and you see a gap that's too far back, you don't want to go back and fix that. You can just sort of, fix that with your needle at the end. You'll want to make sure you have a lot of slack, so your yarn is not bunched up. When you're going through, let's say if this yarn was caught on, I'm just going to see if I can catch it on the edge of this like this. Let's see what would happen if it's caught underneath my hand, let's say, for example, and I go in and I go in and I go in. You can see it's not being fed through the needle, and so your stitches are not staying in. So if you find your stitches are not staying in, that would be the first thing I would check, is what could be potentially snagging the yarn from going through the needle. And again, it could be really gentle. It could just be barely snagged on the edge of your canvas, and that could mean that the stitches won't go in. It also could be maybe there's something obstructing the yarn, maybe it's bunched up within the needle, so you just kind of pull it in the back, pull it in the front, make sure there's nothing weird going on. If you needed, you could potentially cut it and then rethread it if there's something snagging it in the middle. But check those things. Otherwise, it really should stay in. The other reasons why it might not stay in is you might not be pushing all the way through. So make sure you really punch all the way through. And those are the most common reasons that that stitches don't stay in. Now, I'm still working with the same color for this whole section, but let's say I wanted to switch to a different color. All you would do is flip over your work, pull the yarn a little bit, and this is the same for when you're ending, is you would pull the yarn a little bit so that there's some slack, cut the yarn, and then pull it back out. You don't need to do anything with this. It will hold with the tension of the fabric and the tension of the other stitches. It will hold in place. And so let's say if I wanted to start with another color here, I would just thread that color through the needle and start again, wherever it is that I want to start. In this case, I'm just going to continue with the same color. So again, I'll punch it through, pull out the end, flip it back over, and keep punching. This is called flat stitch. This is, you know, we're punching into the front of the work and it creates these flat loops. The back of the work we saw before, this is what you would call loop stitch. So a lot of people like how this looks on, when they want this on the front of their work. What that would mean is you would be working into the back of the canvas. You would be working in with flat stitch on the back of the canvas, and that would create that texture on the front. So in this case, you know, the pattern is designed to be done in flat stitch and the pattern is on the front of the canvas. But, you know, once you do create at least part of it in flat stitch, you can see in the negative space, like I could do the rest of this in flat stitch on the back here, and then you would have loop stitch on the front. So that's, you know, up to you. And before, when I said don't take it out, you know, too far when you're creating a loop, you might want to do that at some point. Those are other stitch variations where you might want to have very exaggerated loops or flat stitches because that might work with a particular pattern or the look that you're going for. So those are all options for you. So I've gone all the way around, and what I'm going to do is just continue going, following the same path around. So kind of increasingly, you know, smaller concentric paths. And with each kind of design and each like shape that you're working within, it will create some texture. So you can see like here, it looks almost like there's like an inner diamond. That's just sort of how it turned out. And again, if you want it to look different, you can play around with that. There's really a lot of variation possible. So that is how to get started with punch needle. I hope that was clear. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I think that's one of the benefits of having a small business is I can, you know, reply directly to any questions you have and provide support to you if this is feeling tricky. So just let me know and I'm happy to do that. And otherwise, really hope you enjoy punch needle. Once you get going, I find it totally addictive and the possibilities are endless. So please enjoy and would love to see your finished work. Tag us on social, Both Hands Crafts. And thank you so much.